and myself, recording secretary Erica Barrera.
Would any member of the public, either in person or online, and we will explain how to join online, like to discuss anything on the consent agenda, today's consent items?
Members,
Go ahead.
okay, members of the public are encouraged to join our meetings via Zoom Gov, a secure service that connects you live with no lag time. This meeting is also streamed on youtube.com/City of Monterey and Comcast Channel 25. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate delays. To join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the phone link or phone numbers on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, then enter the webinar ID. Today's webinar ID is 161-914-9563. To provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. To provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters will be announced using their last 3 phone number digits or the name typed into Zoom. Public commenters will be muted until it's their turn to speak. Please turn off TV or computer speakers or go to another room while connected, as background noise interferes with the broadcast. Public speakers will be called upon in order of hands raised. There is a 3-minute time limit for today's meeting. Please stay within that limit. I can go ahead and mark committee member Turgan present as well. And there are currently no hands raised online.
All right, so on the consent agenda is minutes for 3 meetings. And I believe that's it.
Oh, right.
Sorry. That means to turn my mic on. I like that little sign that he gives us. He just wiggles the thing. So I'd like to entertain a motion to
Patrick, before we do that.
Yeah.
I wasn't present at 2 of
Oh, right,
those,
right,
so
right.
if you
So we're
want
gonna
to go through each of them individually to say, or just abstain, or do you want to do them?
Yeah,
all
yeah.
at once?
Did you have a chance to read them?
I
Okay,
did,
good. So
but I
let's-
wasn't present for
If-
the
Commissioners,
July 19th or August 16th
Okay.
meetings.
committee members are actually allowed to vote on the minutes if
Oh, they are?
if they have
Even if they're
reviewed the
here.
minutes.
Okay.
All right, well, let's just entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes for the consent agenda.
And I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and we're going to move on to item number 5. Consider 95 Prescott Avenue sign permit application SI 23-0173 or 5 wall signs, blah, blah, blah. And Matthew Buggert is going to do a presentation.
Yes, I will share my screen. Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Buggert, and I'm an associate planner with the City of Monterey's Planning Division. Today, we're here to talk about a sign permit at 95 Prescott Avenue, sign permit application SI 23-0173, at today's Architectural Review Committee meeting. The recommendation from city staff is that ARC adopt the resolution approving the sign permit with conditions of approval. The subject property, 95 Prescott, is located in the northwestern side of the city, close to Cannery Row, adjacent to both Wave Street and the Recreation Trail, sandwiched between the 2 of them. Some background on the site. The existing signage at the property was approved about 13 years ago in April of 2010. It was for the Cannery Row Brewing Company business. And as part of that approval, it included architectural adjustments at the property. And this was attached as attachment to your staff report packet. Just last year, there was a use permit approved for a new business at the property called Tipsy Putt, and it would be a combination mini golf brewery in the 3-story structure. The proposal before you today is to essentially replace existing signage on the property. Included in this proposal is 5 wall signs, 2 projecting signs, and 1 hanging sign. Currently, there's 13 signs at the property, and there would be 8 signs. It's a little inundated with signs, at least with all the red arrows here. This shows each of them, and I'm going to walk through all the updates to the different signs on the property. There's one that's not depicted on here that's on the opposite side of this building, facing their patio against the recreation trail. And you can see this is at the corner of Wave Street and Prescott Avenue, looking at the main entrance, the only real public entrance to the business, which would be from right here. The 5 signs that would not be included as part of this are those that are closest to the pedestrian walkways. There's 2 on sliding shutters over here, and then window signs along here that are not included as part of this application package. The first 2 I'm going to talk about are the 2 projecting signs. These are both 19.5 square feet and attached between the first and second story. The signage would be using the existing Cannery Row Brewing Company sign there and would be replacing the face of it with a new face. So nothing would have to be drilled out necessarily from the structure itself. It would just be replacing the facing there. And these are both internally illuminated signs facing out from the building. And that is depicted here. At nighttime, it would be look something like this at both of the corners. Additionally, there's a wall sign above the entrance here. It is also backlit, halo lit here. And this is how that wall sign would look with some extra color there. And the letters themselves would be halo lit as depicted here. Additionally, on the far left, I know it's a little tiny in this photo, but there's a hanging sign from a wooden architectural feature on the building, and it would be replaced with a Tipsy Putt sign here it wouldn't be made of wood, but it would look like wood behind the lettering, and the lighting would be updated here to have a gooseneck lighting on both sides of the sign faced on the sign itself. So it would not be internally illuminated, would be externally illuminated. Additionally, there's a wall sign around facing Wave Street to the right, and this is on an old kind of barnwood door, and it would be updated with a similar wood type material placed on a second story. Additionally, there are 2 large stencils along the roof line, and this contributes the most square footage to the amount of signage that is proposed to the property. And it would be updated. Well, first off, the inspiration for this was based on the Monterey Canning Company that's a few doors down, and that was considered as part of the previous architectural review consideration. And it would be updated. Taking a look at the Wave Street side, it would be updated from Cannery Row Brewing Company, established 2010, to Tipsy Putt Cannery Row. And on the side facing Prescott, it would also be updated to show Tipsy Putt Cannery Row from the Cannery Row Brewing Company. On the left side of the building, at the corner of Prescott and the recreation trail, we've gone over all the signage that's on the right side. There's one sign here on another barnwood type door facing their interior patio. And that would be updated similarly to the one on the opposite side. Oh, yes, those would not be included. With a wood style sign mounted to the door itself. So in total, 8 signs. There is 265 linear feet of frontage. There's 100 linear feet facing the recreation trail and 100 linear feet facing Wave Street, and the remaining 65 feet facing Prescott. And as proposed, there's 384 square feet of proposed signage, and 270 of that is associated with the roof line lettering. Findings required for approval. There are 3 findings. The first one is that the proposal needs to achieve the purposes and objectives of the sign ordinance. The 2 that are most discussed in the staff report is regarding the proliferation of signage. And staff did not find that it was a proliferation of signage, as it would be a reduction of what's there on the site in comparison to both previously approved signage and what is still existing there. But that it would also not be equitable between sign owners, as it would exceed the sign guidelines, both in the number of wall signs and the total allowed square footage. The second finding is that the proposal needs to be consistent with the guidelines, or ARC determines the proposal better achieves the purposes and objectives. And generally, the signage is not consistent with the guidelines. I have an asterisk here because I'll be talking about it a little bit more on the following slide. That said, the signage that's proposed does retain compliance with the previously approved signage from 13 years ago. To go over the guideline inconsistencies, it exceeds the maximum square footage that's associated with the linear street frontage of the building. It's supposed to be 1 square foot per foot of building frontage, and it far exceeds that. There should be, according to the sign guidelines, 1 projecting sign, and there's 2 proposed, the 2 associated with the keg bottle features. The projecting signs are 19.5 square feet, and the maximum is 6 square feet. 19.5 square feet is the existing signage that's already there that they would be replacing the frontage of. Projecting signs should not be installed more than 12 feet above grade. It far exceeds this, leading up to above the 2nd floor. The projecting sign should be within 10 feet of the entrance. The one that's at the corner of Wave Street and Prescott is within 10 feet of that public entrance, and the one that's closer to the recreation trail in Cannery Row is more than 10 feet. There's supposed to be 2 wall signs per storefront, and 5 are proposed. Usually when we do this counting here, we look at tenant spaces, we look at public entrances to the building, and in the case of this property, there is 1 facing, 1 public entrance, so there should be 2 wall signs. There's emergency exits on the other sides, but regardless. The wall signs should be equal to or less than 50 square feet, and the 2 along the roof line are both 135 square feet. And finally, exceptionally designed internal illumination is preferred. We usually don't recommend internally illuminated boxes. We also understand in this case that they would be replacing existing signage there, so we've brought it to you. The third finding that's required for approval is that the proposal is consistent with the general plan. We found it to be substantially consistent. We're going through architectural review for review of the proposal, and it supports the existing commercial business, or proposed / existing. I think they're trying to open up the end of October. So recommended conditions from staff to bring it closer into compliance with the sign guidelines would be to remove both of the 135 square foot wall signs near the roof line, remove one of the wall signs in the staff report. The one that's mentioned is the one facing their interior patio. Remove one of the projecting signs, the one that's further from the entrance, and reduce the size of the projecting sign above the entrance to try and come into the 6 square foot maximum. The total reduction after these changes would be from 384 square feet to 86 square feet, roughly. The reason they are before you today as ARC is because you are allowed to go beyond the sign guidelines. And with that, staff's recommendation is to adopt the resolution approving the sign permit with conditions. I believe the applicant is on the line. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
Before we hear from the applicant, are there any questions for Matthew?
Yeah, I have a few, Matt. In 2010, when the Cannery Row Brewing Company signs were approved, were those consistent with zoning guidelines in 2010? Or were they also non-conforming at that point?
They were not consistent with they were not consistent back then. And I can pull up the series of them. I think staff had recommended the removal of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 signs. And they originally proposed 600 square feet of signage. The total allowed was 265 square feet, and staff's recommendation was 145 square feet. And ARC at that time approved, I don't have that number, but it's above 400 square feet of signage at the building.
And then just my second question, the illuminated signs are being proposed. Were those previously illuminated as well? I can't recall.
So staff had originally recommended that the internally illuminated cabinet signs be updated to be not internally illuminated. And ARC at that time had approved the internally illuminated design.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Matthew? So the kegs are going to stay. The beer kegs.
There's no proposed alterations to the kegs.
All right. And yeah, I think Shelley asked my other question. So would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Yes, I'll go ahead and allow Mr. Ospina to speak.
Hello, Mr. Espino, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you well. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead and make your statement.
Yeah, good afternoon. I do not have any presentation to make. I think Matthew has covered everything. We are basically asking the committee to approve our proposal because it does retain compliance with the previously approved, actually less signage. And we just hope that we can go ahead with the signage as presented. I'm here basically to answer any technical questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Espino. I have a question for you. Does Tipsy Putt own other Tipsy Putts? Is this the only one?
No, they do have one in Emeryville
Okay.
and one in Sacramento.
And they're all called Tipsy Putt?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Ospino?
I have one question and staff might be able to answer this as well. The signage that's proposed, the painted signs on the side of the building, as I recall right now, the Cannery Row Brewing Company, they're not like a bright white, they're sort of like a faded. It's almost like they've been made to look aged. Is that also proposed, or is this that sort of treatment of the painting, is that proposed, or is this just like a bright white painted lettering on the side of the building?
The exact color may be a better question for the applicant.
Yeah, we can vary the color accordingly because these are basically decals that will be applied to the building. So we're open to suggestions. We can go with like a beige or other color than just white.
I don't think the existing signs are decals. I think they're painted on the building, which gives them that sort of weathered, fading look. And that actually worries me that these are proposed as decals. Do we know anything about the existing signs? Are they decals?
It is my understanding that they are stenciled on the building, as in painted.
Am I misunderstanding the definition of decal? Or that's like a sticker?
I think
right?
decal is sticker.
It's like a
Stencil.
vinyl stick on,
Stencil.
yeah, so it's gonna be an opaque. It's not gonna have any brick bleeding through it.
Do you know?
Yeah, yeah, I
Do
know
you
what you're
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not going to have the look of the existing.
And then just to be clear, Matthew, the staff is recommending not to allow the stenciled sign on the roof. Is that correct?
As the existing condition is to remove that from the proposal.
Okay. So,
What's not?
correct, but it would, whatever,
It could,
yeah.
Other quick clarification then, so
Or
it,
up your mind.
it looked like staff was also not requesting removal of the internally illuminated sign because it's more or less existing. Is that correct?
There's a couple different features that would bring the sign into greater compliance with the sign guidelines, and that also includes reducing the size of the sign. So whatever alternative bracket that they ended up hanging in could not be 19.5 square feet. It couldn't even be the same
No,
size.
I just meant the internally illuminated sign. I didn't see that as something you wanted to come into compliance to not be internally illuminated.
That is not included as part of the conditions.
Okay, and
Currently.
just part of discussion, I think last time at one point, we approved something because it was already internally illuminated and we were more or less chastised for that. Saying we shouldn't have done that. I mean, I know we have some leeway to do that, but I guess we should consider that this time.
Yeah, the committee can add any conditions they see fit.
Okay, well, I guess in that case, we can open it up for committee comments.
I think we need to go to public
Oh,
comment.
sorry, my bad.
I do have a
Okay,
quick,
sorry.
so I'm wondering if you could pull up the signs that that you're proposing we approve.
The slide. Yeah.
This slide, yeah.
Matt, while you're doing that, I just have a question. Are there other illuminated signs that are similar to what's being proposed with other businesses in the Cannery Row area? It's been a while since I've been down there at night. Well, actually, I was just down there, but I didn't pay attention to the sign illumination.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Also, one more comment. I was able to confirm that the current Cannery Row Brewing Company lettering is painted on.
So in the existing conditions that are on the project, which are subject to change, would include a smaller version of this sign here. It includes this sign here. Does not include these. It does include this one. And it does not include these three, does not include this one up here, does not include this one down here. So it's the hanging sign, the wall sign, projecting sign, the wall sign.
Your conditions are recommending 4 signs. In lieu of the applied for 8.
Yes. I think I'm doing the math right there. It would not include the 2 near the top. It wouldn't include this one, and it wouldn't include the one in the patio.
Did that answer your question, Kim?
Yes. Thank you.
It brings up one other question, that if you're saying that we don't, or the one of the conditions is to remove the stencil or not to put signs over the stencil ones there, what do you do with what's there? Do they go up and repaint the individual bricks, or
I was gonna,
what's
that was gonna be part of my comment.
I mean, what,
Yeah.
just, or they just leave it there? You know?
There is not currently a condition that addresses that.
Good question.
The applicant has their hand raised.
Can I ask another question just before we do that? Can you show the sign for what's the main entrance again? Okay, thank you. And that doesn't have lighting or has, oh, it's backlit like that. I got it. Halo lit, yeah.
And so the backlit signs are
Way up there, yeah, on
the high ones,
on the kegs.
and that's currently not backlit.
They
So-
currently are internally illuminated.
This sign that this is going over, I thought you said earlier that it's not.
It is.
Okay, sorry.
This is internally illuminated. as part of staff's recommendation back in 2010, they had proposed it not be internally illuminated and be a HDU or redwood sign, and ARC at that time decided this was appropriate for the site.
Mr. Ospina, you had something to add?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify the signs about the lettering. I haven't been able to get up close to those signs because of the height. And I took some close-up photographs, and with my expertise, they appear to me to be printed on a material that was applied to the brick. They actually printed, and they did a very nice job, I may add. They printed some of the brick, or they put some color to simulate brick coming through. Because if you have a painted sign on a brick like that, that will be a total different scenario. How are you going to remove that sign? Are you going to sandblast it? Then we know that that is not allowed closer to. So, but I'm just trying to say that is, from my point of view, I think those are stencil. And I mean a vinyl or some material that was applied to the brick. That's all.
Thank you. Kim, where did you come up with this painted info? I'm just curious.
My husband was the architect for
Okay.
Cannery Row Brewing Company.
And so that's first.
Yeah, he's,
No.
I just texted him to
Okay.
confirm whether it was applied, but he did say it was painted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we can open it up for public comment, either in person or online. And is there anybody with their hand raised or anybody online?
There are no other attendees and no hands raised.
Great, let's open it up for committee comments. I'll start out with, this is a subjective thing. Cannery Row Brewing Company, and it established 2010, kind of looked like it was an institutional cannery style thing. Tipsy Putt, on the other hand, just for me personally, the name just seems a little more carnival-ish. And so I don't have any problem with them naming it whatever they want to name it and having signage that meets the sign guidelines, but that 270 some square linear foot wrap around up on top, that would bother me, seeing that in Tipsy Putt Cannery Row. So I was glad to hear that the conditions that staff put forward didn't include that sign and some of the other changes you guys made. So that's my 2 cents on this.
So when I was initially reviewing the proposal, I noticed I understand that they are reducing the amount of signs, but they're tending to locate the signs in the same place. But there's a big difference in the appearance of the aesthetic of Carmel Brewing Company and the colors they chose and the style they chose as opposed to Tipsy Putt. These are very bright colors on a older looking building. They stand out way more. In all honesty, I walk by that every time we go to Cannery Row because I park in the parking structure. I never noticed that Carmel Brewing Company had that many signs. I saw them, but they just kind of blended in more, fit the more Cannery Row industrial kind of vibe. Whereas these seemed to, I looked at the pictures, I was like, wow, there's a lot of signs there and they're very bright. And then I got down to staff's recommendation and I agree wholeheartedly with the proposed conditions, with the reduction, taking those big ones, the ones on the roof, like was previously stated. the way Carmel Brewing Company had theirs written on the roof line. It just looked like part of the industrial, like the picture you showed from the cannery company. The white, stark white is just too, it's, I think Patrick used the term carnival. Carnival. It was, it just didn't fit kind of the vibe down there to me. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree with
Yeah.
Shelley. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, I agree with Shelley just and Patrick, you know, the brightness of the colors and especially the sign over the entrance is very carnival feeling. So I just wonder, especially with the illumination, if there's a way to make it a little more in feel with that old cannery, that older look. So just a thought.
Yeah, one thing to think about, let me jump in here, is that if there are existing Tipsy Putts, they probably have a logo and branding that they want to, you know, I would imagine that their other facilities have these same colors and fonts and stuff like that. So that's, I don't know if we can ask them to change the design of their logo, but we can definitely ask them to, you know, tone it down, which I think staff has already done a pretty good job at.
Yeah, I think there's something interesting that happens when like an urban area gets denser and the buildings get taller, that signs very high up, I'm not sure they have the impact, the desired impact that people think they will, because you don't walk down a sidewalk and really look up and see those signs way up. I agree with, I'm not crazy. Well, there's 2 things. I think we don't like the graphics of the green Tipsy Putt signs. And I also think that there's something sort of, there is an industrial vibe to the Cannery Row Brewing Company that makes it feel like an old factory. And I think that's going to be lost when you call it the Tipsy Putt Cannery Row. So there's content and there's graphics. I think for that reason, we should go with staff's recommendation to get rid of the painted signs on top of the building. I don't know that there's much we can do about the graphics of the actual signs themselves. If they can bring the signs into compliance, I think we sort of got to give them a pass on that. I'll also say I like the idea of the business. You know, I don't think we have anything against a Tipsy Putt. I think it's great to have a little miniature golf course on Cannery Row. But yeah, some of the graphics of it are a little rough to handle. So I think getting rid of the large upper signs would be very helpful.
I have a couple of follow-up comments and questions. Can you pull up again your staff recommendations? Just there's quite a few signs and I'm having a little trouble remembering. And then 2, I thought I was remembering that part of the guidelines was that signage should be more of a natural material. I thought like wood, things like that. Am I remembering that incorrectly? Or is that also how this is varying from those guidelines?
The material, there's not an inconsistency for the material for the site. That said, the material can be a condition.
No, I'm asking from the guidelines, not from the site, but from the guidelines. And I know we're able to provide our recommendations, but
The guidelines do not have a material requirement for this site. There's not an inconsistency.
Matt, just for clarification, different areas of Monterey have different sign guidelines. Is that correct? So I think what we're thinking of is some of the guidelines along Lighthouse. I think it was when Burger King, there was a sign, or Carl's Jr.
Yeah.
So are there different sign requirements for different areas of Monterey?
Some of the specific plans have additional sign requirements. And this is the C2 zoning district, which is a more generalized zone. So the general citywide sign guidelines don't have specific materials that are required of signs in this location.
It looks to me like the signs are, some of the signs are wood. They're just painted green, right? So it's made out of wood or it's sandblasted wood.
Lines to look wood, I think is what.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's faux wood, but yeah, that's their logo.
We can do. I feel like also point out that Kennery Row Brewing Company got away with sort of a fast one on the kegs. Because to me, that would read as signage.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and it didn't get counted as signage.
And we had some discussion regarding that as well.
Okay.
And we deferred to the interpretation that was done to maintain consistency.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. I think with most everyone here, there's some challenge with these. I think these recommendations are fairly helpful. It seems like they could also gooseneck, a sign or two other, the internally illuminated or
Yeah.
the halo ones. I don't want to get into too much detail on that. It seems like if we just kept the painted Cannery Row Brewing Company on there, that would almost feel historic and at least a nod to what was kind of approved in there before, and that's fine. I guess if they really don't like it, feels like a little bit their prerogative to remove it. But I think we're all in agreement that decals would be inappropriate, and that sign up there as well. Yeah, only other things I could think of would be to your point, like the signage is up high, isn't noticeable. So I think they shouldn't worry about it that much. Also, there is a lot of chaos down there, and it is a big building. So I do understand wanting to kind of label and mark it around. And generally speaking, it stood out to me going by there. You notice it, you notice the kegs, et cetera. That's like a pretty big marker and indicator. I don't think they're going to have any trouble having people notice the place. So I don't feel very bad about the removals. So all that being said, I mean, in some ways, I wish we could say something about making at least the overhead sign a slightly different color or something. But again, that's their brand. I suppose we could discuss removing the internally illuminated parts, because that's you'd see from up and down streets. It's kind of right at that. I haven't been out there at night in a long time, so I don't remember how bright those are, but it's also hard to determine how bright they're planning on making those.
Yeah.
But-
Are there rules like, does that have to stay lit? Are they allowed to keep that lit 24/7, or is it just allowed to be turned on during business hours?
There's a maximum lumens. There's a maximum brightness that's allowed for signage down there.
But no time,
No time.
or, okay.
I don't believe so.
So
Matthew, I'd like, if we can just do this, because there's a lot of conditions that you guys put on this. If we can just go through them one by one really quickly, if you can bring up the slides, just so that we're all can wrap our heads around exactly what these conditions are.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I have one more thought on the entrance sign. If, as we're reviewing this, I wonder if there's any possibility of it being more like that wood type look than the illuminated sign. The colors and their logo are what they are. If it wasn't lit up, it may not feel so carnival.
Yeah.
if it just had gooseneck lights on it, would that
Yeah.
be preferable? Just.
I mean, from my
Yeah.
perspective, because one of the other signs was that way. It was kind of that wood look and it had a
Mm.
sign, I
Yeah.
just think
Yeah.
that would feel a little more consistent with the rest of the look on the building itself and the neighborhood.
Good point. So let's go back to that slide actually, because it's the entrance. So, okay, did you put any conditions on this sign?
Smaller.
No.
It's not smaller. It's the same size as the existing,
Smaller.
or it's smaller.
So here, I'll walk through
Okay,
what
go ahead.
the conditions are
Thank you.
that are on the signage. Because it only affects. Okay. So let's, I suppose, use this photo. So the conditions the first one removes both of these.
That goes away.
The second one removes this one
Mhm.
and keeps this one.
But does that one get smaller?
And the one up above here gets smaller and we don't have a design yet. About a reduced sign would kind of depend on what's.
Well, you did
decided
show us
here.
a mock-up that was that exact same shape. And it
Yep.
said Tipsy Putt. So is that the design that they're going with?
The design that they have provided uses the exact same housing
Okay,
here and it replaces the face. So they wouldn't have to deal with any of the inner electronics. They wouldn't have to remove the metal on the outside.
got it.
And you can still see the swoop here from the
Right.
brewing company here.
Matt,
Went along.
were from how many feet to how many feet or?
So the existing sign is 19.5 square feet. And the citywide sign guidelines say that projecting signs should be 6 square feet.
Wow,
So the reduction is
significant.
significant if that is to be conducted.
I just want to make a comment on that, that I feel like we could give them a pass on to rebuild that sign
rebuild.
is going to be a very expensive proposition for them, given how much signage we're taking off the building. I'd
Yeah.
be tempted to give them a pass on that one.
And then they can use the existing housing and lighting
Yeah, exactly.
and just stick another slide up on top
Yeah.
of it. Okay,
That's also a huge reduction. That sign would look dinky
yeah,
up
you
there.
wouldn't even be able to see it.
Yeah.
So can we make note of that? Okay.
Yep.
All right, let's
Matthew,
move
are-
on to,
Sorry, quick.
yeah, go ahead.
Are you at all able to mark up this screen? Is that an option for whatever program we're using?
We could do some edits in PowerPoint.
Well,
I mean, I don't want to take too much time doing that, but just because whatever the one that showed kind of the overall, because I did misunderstand a few points there. Because I thought the main entry signage is what I heard was being reduced, which I would think is the one over the arch, not this one that you're pointing to.
Yes, so I was,
But the projecting sign was the one lower sign.
got it. I was
not-
trying to
not the one
indicate
that's-
the two projecting signs being the two red circles. And the projecting sign above the entrance, which was this one.
Yep.
Would be retained but reduced in size. And the projecting sign over here in the existing housing would not be allowed to remain,
Okay,
would be removed.
so we get that. And we're saying as a committee that we're okay letting them have that existing sign housing, just replacing the sign,
Okay, and to be clear, retaining,
19 point square. Yeah, not retaining both of them,
okay,
still removing the one, but keeping that one in the housing that's existing. So that will save them some money and they'll be able to get a sign up quickly in time to open.
Yeah, that's a tough ask, I think, because I mean, especially the one on the path. I mean, that's at least for me personally, that's the only one I've ever noticed.
We're removing it though.
I know, that's what
Okay.
I'm saying. So I'm saying that's a tough ask for them. And then if there's still only trying to.
So
There's that
this
hanging
small
sign though. See?
Right,
Okay.
that, I mean, that's the only thing that while on the trail calls your attention to this at what this business is. And that whole row that you're walking on is plastered with lots of these. Well, it's not terrible down there, but
yeah.
there aren't that many entrances there, except for across the way from it. There's just signage like crazy, right? That's just so to stand out in that noise. I get it.
And this has all the same sort of electronics and this corner sign, it's a replica of the one on the.
this is essentially a copy paste of the other corner, correct? So this is the one that currently staff's condition includes the removal of this sign purely based on the citywide sign guidelines, where they're allowed one projecting sign.
And I'll also note that the city regulations discourage signage along the recreational trail.
So are we asking them to remove the kegs as well?
They-
It's gonna look weird.
Yeah, it is gonna
Right.
look weird.
And I believe to remove one, you would remove both. In this instance, I would defer to the applicant. You make an excellent point. With the previous business, the kegs definitely represent a product that is sold by that business. So they definitely represent signage. In this instance, they're not as closely tied to the business. So at that point, it kind of could be considered signage, could also be considered an architectural feature of the existing building at this point.
I may also relate that to the applicant because during the use permit period, they were very insistent about using local beer and having a whole line of taps and whatnot.
Yeah, I personally am okay with staff's recommendation conditions to remove that sign, and then the kegs have to go kind of with it, because that's what holds the sign up, and I don't think it would look good to just have kegs and no signage. So I'm personally okay with losing the sign that faces the rec trail and keeping the other one as is.
And that lower one is being kept. That one is gonna have goosenecks over it.
Correct.
And it's not that shape. It's like the shape of a putting green or something, or a lima bean or something. I don't know. It's a obscure oval. Okay. Oh, okay. It's an oval. All right.
Pill.
A pill. Okay, good. I'm okay with that. And that, you guys are okay with that, right? Staff is good with that one. And then continue.
I think the one on the glass goes away.
But that's inside actually on the door, right?
So
Okay,
the final condition was removing this sign here, and this is due to the number of wall signs. It could have also been the one that's facing Wave Street. There was no particular. It was a suggestion of a wall sign to remove.
Yeah.
Um,
So they can
and
keep Wave Street or they can
Or
keep this
You
one.
could- Yeah.
And-
Take your pick.
Staff's feeling on that one was again, while not immediately fronting the recreational trail because it is technically inside that enclosed space, with it being transparent material there, it serves essentially the same purpose as advertising along the recreational trail. So that's why it was kind of the option.
And one of the reasons that that sign had been put there is there used to be a public entrance and ramp going up there prior to the patio,
right.
and to inform people that it was there.
Okay, continue. And then the ones on the windows are all gone.
Yes, those are all proposed to be gone. I know we've kind of gone back and forth, but that is all the conditions. It
Okay.
was the roof, the projecting sign here, and removing that one.
Can you just go around to the other side of the building to the other sign that's up there on that redwood hay bale door
Up
thing?
above the truck,
Yeah,
that stain.
it's just, it's that. And that, is there any lighting on that? No
No,
gooseneck?
there, this wooden barn door feature on this side is almost a copy paste to the one that's on the opposite side of the building. Similar signage. And
I guess it's supposed to be a putting green.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Right.
so
Take a stab at a motion.
you guys all get the conditions? Okay, good. Yeah, who wants to do a motion?
Okay, so. Give me a second to get this straight. I will make a motion to approve sign permit application SI 23-0173.
173.
With staff conditions, with one altered condition that we allow the corner sign on the corner of Wave Street and Prescott to remain the existing size.
I'll second that. Any other comments before we take a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. There.
Oh, sorry. I'm denying
Okay, okay, so there is one no.
one.
Uh, and make note of that. Thank you for that. And planning office update.
Yes, thank you. Just real quickly, if you've been following the city council agendas, you may have noticed there was a first reading for an ADU ordinance. This is just was due to a clerical oversight with the public noticing, basically the time frame in between the first reading and the second reading of council. The newspaper posting was not done in time, so we're going through the steps of redoing the first reading and second reading of that ordinance. There are no actual changes to the ordinance itself. You may also have heard or noticed on the agenda that there is a rental inventory ordinance that went to council first reading on September 5th, was approved as amended and as noted in the planning update with some exemptions and different changes that actually went for second reading last night and was approved with some additional alterations, primarily dealing with the enforcement. So that passed at last night's city council meeting. You'll also notice in the planning update document that there is a follow-up to the September 12th Planning Commission. This is just to provide you all with an update of a project that this committee heard. And that's the project at 2 Upper Ragsdale for the final building E for Montage Health Facility. That architectural review permit was approved by this committee with some modified conditions. It was subsequently appealed to the Planning Commission, and then additional environmental review was also performed in the form of an addendum to the mitigated negative declaration. The Planning Commission did approve the planned unit development permit and lot line adjustment associated with it. They also adopted the addendum to the MND. They denied the appeal from Lorna Moffett, and then they also denied the appeal from Montage Health. However, they did adjust the tree replacement requirement to a 1-to-1 replacement.
Thank you, Levi. Thank you, staff. Thank you, committee members. I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting at 4:53.